The space station floated like a silver jewel against the dark backdrop of space. Captain Lisa Morgan pressed her face to the small window in her quarters, watching ships from 12 different worlds dock at the massive structure. She had never seen so many alien vessels in one place. Her hands shook slightly as she adjusted her uniform. The blue fabric felt heavier than usual, and the gold buttons seemed too bright. She knew this meeting would change everything. The Zephyrians had won the Great War, and now they wanted their rewards. Lieutenant Amy Carter knocked on the door and entered without waiting. She carried a metal case that contained Earth's most precious gift to the victorious aliens. "Captain, the shuttle leaves in 10 minutes, Amy said. Her voice carried the same tension that filled the entire human delegation. Lisa nodded and took the case. The weight surprised her. Inside were data crystals containing medical research that could cure diseases across the galaxy. It represented 20 years of work by Earth's greatest scientists. "Do you think they will accept it?" Lisa asked. Amy shrugged. "What choice do we have? The Zephyrians saved us all from the Nexus Empire. Now they get to choose their prizes from every species that fought with them." The two women walked through the narrow corridors of their small ship. Other crew members they passed looked worried. Everyone knew the stories about what happened to species that disappointed the Zephyrians. They were not cruel, but they were very strict about getting what they wanted. The shuttle bay buzzed with activity. Representatives from 11 other worlds prepared their own gifts for the alien conquerors. Lisa saw the bird-like avatons carrying cases of glowing crystals. The reptilian scales had brought weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Even the machine people called constructs wheeled in data cores that pulsed with blue light. "Everyone fears them," Amy whispered as they boarded their shuttle. Lisa understood why. The Zephyrians stood 7 feet tall with blue skin that seemed to glow in certain light. Their silver hair moved like liquid metal, and their violet eyes could see things other species could not. They had technology that made other civilizations look primitive. The shuttle ride to the main station took only minutes, but it felt like hours. Lisa watched through the window as they approached the docking bay. The station was built by the Nexus Empire before the war. It had rooms large enough to hold meetings between hundreds of different species. Inside the main hall, Lisa gasped at the sight. Aliens of every shape and size filled the enormous space. Some breathed different gases and wore special suits. Others needed different gravity and floated in energy bubbles. The diversity was overwhelming but also beautiful. At the center of the hall stood a raised platform. The Zephyrian delegation waited there with the patience of people who had never lost anything important. Their leader was an elderly male with scars across his face from ancient battles. His name was High Commander Vex, and his reputation for fairness was known throughout the galaxy. But Lisa's eyes were drawn to the figure standing beside him. Commander Zara was younger than the other Zephyrians, but clearly held great power. Her armor bore the marks of recent combat, and her violet eyes scanned the crowd with the confidence of someone who had conquered worlds. Zara's silver hair flowed past her shoulders, and her blue skin seemed to glow with inner light. She was beautiful in a way that made other species stop and stare. But there was something dangerous about her too. She moved like a predator, even when standing still. The ceremony began with formal speeches that Lisa barely heard. She was too focused on watching Commander Zara. The alien woman seemed bored by the long words and political promises. She kept looking around the room as if searching for something specific. One by one, the species presented their gifts to the Zephyrian leaders. The Avatans offered rare crystals that could power starships for decades. The scales brought weapon designs that could destroy planets. The constructs presented databases containing the collected knowledge of 100 worlds. Each time a gift was presented, Commander Zara would glance at it briefly, then return to scanning the crowd. Her behavior seemed strange to Lisa. Most people would be excited by such incredible treasures. Finally, High Commander Vex called for the human delegation. Captain Lisa Morgan stepped forward carrying the medical research. She felt the eyes of hundreds of aliens watching her every move. The weight of representing her entire species pressed down on her shoulders. Earth offers this gift to honor our Zephyrian allies. Lisa said in a clear voice. "These medical advances can heal the sick across many worlds. They represent our greatest achievement in the science of life." She held out the case, expecting one of the Zephyrian leaders to take it. Instead, Commander Zara stepped forward. Her violet eyes locked onto Lisa's face with an intensity that made the human captain feel exposed. The silence stretched uncomfortably long. Everyone in the vast hall seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see what would happen. The only sound was the quiet hum of the station's life support systems. Commander Zara ignored the case completely. Instead, she continued to stare at Lisa as if trying to read her thoughts. The alien woman's face showed no emotion, but something flickered in those strange violet eyes. Then Zara spoke in a voice that carried clearly across the enormous space. Her words were simple, but they hit Lisa like a physical blow. "I choose her." Chaos erupted in them. Hall delegates from every species began talking at once in their native languages. The sound was overwhelming. Clicks, whistles, roars, and electronic beeps filled the air as everyone tried to understand what had just happened. Lisa felt the blood drain from her face. She had expected to hand over the research and return to Earth. Instead, she found herself the center of attention in the worst possible way. Her legs felt weak, and she struggled to remain standing. Lieutenant Amy Carter stepped forward. "From the human group, sir, you cannot be serious," she said to High Commander Vex. "The human captain is not property to be traded, Commander." Zara finally looked away from Lisa to address the younger human woman. "The terms of victory were clear," she said, calmly. "Any prize from the allied species belongs to the victor. I choose the human captain." "High Commander?" Vex nodded slowly. "It is within Commander Zara's rights as our greatest war leader. What she claims in victory becomes hers. By law, Lisa forced herself to speak, even though her voice sounded strange in her own ears. "What do you want with me?" Commander Zara tilted her head slightly. "You will serve aboard my ship as an advisor on human military methods." The answer made no sense to Lisa. The war was over. Why would anyone need military advisors now? But arguing seemed pointless. The Zephyrians held all the power, and their decisions were final. Around the hall, other delegates whispered among themselves. Many looked shocked by what they had witnessed. Some seemed frightened. Others appeared curious about what would happen next. Lisa looked back at her small team, seeing the anger and confusion on their faces. She knew they would try to object, but there was nothing they could do. The Zephyrian military had saved every species in the room. They had earned the right to claim whatever prizes they wanted. Commander Zara turned back to High Commander Vex. "The ceremony may continue," she said. "We will depart when the other business is finished." As the formal proceedings resumed, Lisa tried to process what had just happened. Her entire life had changed in a matter of seconds. She was no longer a starship captain representing Earth. Instead, she had become the personal property of an alien warrior, whose motives remained completely mysterious. The only question now was what Commander Zara really wanted from her. The transfer happened faster than Lisa had imagined possible. Within 2 hours, she found herself aboard the Zephyrian flagship Star Crusher, with only a small bag of personal belongings. The massive warship was unlike anything she had ever seen. Dark, metal corridors stretched in impossible directions, lit by strips of light that pulsed like a living heartbeat. The walls seemed to absorb sound, making every footstep echo strangely. The air tasted different too, with a metallic tang that reminded Lisa she was very far from home. Commander Zara led her through the twisting passages without speaking. The alien woman moved with fluid grace despite her height and the heavy armor she wore. Other Zephyrian crew members they passed stepped aside and bowed their heads in respect. Lisa tried to memorize the route but gave up after the 5th turn. The ship was enormous and clearly designed by minds that thought differently than humans. Every room they passed seemed to serve multiple purposes, and the technology was beyond her understanding. Finally, they stopped at a door that opened silently at Zara's approach. The room beyond surprised Lisa completely. Instead of a prison cell, she found comfortable quarters that had been modified for human use. A bed sized for her smaller frame sat against one wall. Shelves held books written in English, and a small desk faced a window that showed the stars outside. Someone had clearly prepared for her arrival with great care. "Your quarters, Commander," Zara said simply. "You will remain here when not needed elsewhere." Lisa set down her bag and looked around the room. Everything was clean and functional, but it felt like a cage, despite the comfortable furnishings. She turned to ask questions, but found that Zara had already left. For the next 3 days, Lisa saw no one except the Zephyrian who brought her meals twice daily. He was young, with bright blue skin and silver hair cut short in military style. He never spoke, but always bowed politely before leaving. The isolation gave Lisa time to think about her situation. She was clearly not a prisoner in the traditional sense. The door to her quarters was not locked, and she could walk freely through certain sections of the ship. But she was also not free to leave. On the 4th day, Commander Zara summoned her to a meeting room. The space was circular with a large table in the center. Maps of star systems covered the walls, and holographic displays showed ship movements across the galaxy. Zara stood, studying one particular display that showed human colony worlds. The alien commander had removed her armor and wore a simple dark uniform that made her seem less intimidating but no less powerful. "Sit," Commander Zara said, without looking away from the display. Lisa took a chair across the table and waited. The silence stretched uncomfortably long. She had learned that Zephyrians were comfortable with quiet in ways that made humans nervous. "Tell me about the Battle of Kepler Station," Zara said. Finally, the question surprised Lisa. That battle had happened early in the war, when humanity was still learning how to fight alongside alien allies. It had not gone well for anyone involved. "We lost the station," Lisa said carefully. "Most of the human fleet was destroyed in the first hour." "Yes, but your Admiral Kate Brown held her position for 6 hours after receiving retreat orders." Zara turned away from the display to face Lisa. Why did she do this? Lisa thought back to the official reports. She had read Admiral Brown had been court-martialed after the battle for disobeying direct orders. Many people considered her a fool who had wasted lives for no good reason. She believed the civilian evacuation ships needed more time. Lisa said the evacuation was already complete. Zara pointed out. The civilians were safe. Yet your admiral continued fighting. Lisa felt defensive about criticizing a fellow human officer, but she answered honestly. Some people thought she was trying to prove that humans could fight as well as other species. Zara nodded as if this confirmed something she had suspected. Your people do this often, she said. Fight for reasons that have nothing to do with winning or losing. I suppose we do, Lisa admitted. During the war I studied battle records from every allied species. Zara returned to the star map. Most followed predictable patterns based on their biology and culture. But humans would sacrifice strategic advantages, throw away tactical superiority, even risk entire fleets for ideas that existed only in their minds. What kind of ideas, Lisa asked, though? She suspected she already knew. Honor, duty, loyalty, justice. Zara listed them as if they were foreign words. She was still learning to pronounce. Most species consider these luxuries they cannot afford in wartime. Humans consider them necessities. Lisa said, Yes, and that interests me greatly. Zara moved to stand by the window, looking out at the stars. My people are very practical. We calculate odds, measure resources, plan. For every possible outcome we won the war because we were more efficient than our enemies. But Lisa prompted, sensing there was more to this conversation. But efficiency has costs, Zara said quietly. We have forgotten how to fight for anything beyond survival. We have become very good at winning battles, but we no longer remember why victory should matter. The admission surprised Lisa. She had expected to be questioned about military tactics or human weaknesses. Instead, she was hearing something that sounded almost like a confession. Your people are facing some kind of crisis, Lisa said. Zara nodded slowly. We have everything we thought we wanted. Our technology is supreme. Our military is unbeatable. Our territory spans dozens of star systems, yet something feels wrong. Lisa waited for more explanation, but Zara seemed lost in thought. The alien woman stared out at the passing stars with an expression that seemed almost human in its sadness. My scientists tell me this is normal, she continued. When a species achieves total security, they often experience what your psychologists call existential emptiness, but knowing the cause does not provide the cure. Lisa began to understand why she had been chosen. It was not about military advice all. Commander Zara was searching for something her own people had lost. You think humans have something your people need? Lisa said, I think humans never stopped fighting for things that cannot be measured. Zara replied, your species found ways to make abstract concepts feel as real and important as food or shelter or safety. Lisa thought about all the human conflicts she had studied. Many of them seemed pointless when viewed from a practical standpoint. People died for flags, for religions, for political ideas that changed with each generation. Yet somehow these struggles gave meaning to human existence. What do you want me to do? Lisa asked. Help me understand. Zara said, I need to learn how your people find purpose in struggle itself. You make ideas feel worth dying for. My own people have forgotten these lessons, and I fear we are becoming something less than we once were. Lisa looked at the star maps covering the walls. Each one showed Zephyrian victories, territories conquered, enemies defeated. Yet Commander Zara seemed to view these achievements as somehow hollow. I am not a teacher. Lisa said, I am just a starship captain. You are here. Zara pointed out, you could have refused to come. You could have tried to escape or resist. Instead, you chose to try to understand your situation. That kind of curiosity in the face of the unknown is very human. Lisa realized her entire understanding of the situation had been wrong. She was not a prisoner or a prize. She was a volunteer in an experiment that might determine the future of an entire civilization. The next morning brought new revelations. Lisa woke to find Commander Zara waiting in her quarters. The alien woman sat perfectly still in the single chair. Her violet eyes focused on something beyond the window. The morning light from a nearby star painted her blue skin in shades of gold and purple. You sleep restlessly, Zara observed without turning around. Your dreams are loud. Lisa sat up in bed, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. She had indeed been dreaming about Earth, about her crew, about the life she had left behind. The dreams felt more real than her current situation. Zephyrians do not dream the way humans do. Zara continued. We process information during rest periods, but we do not create the elaborate fantasies your minds produce. Tell me what you saw. Lisa hesitated. The dream had been personal, filled with memories of her childhood and fears about her future. But something in Zara's voice suggested this was not casual curiosity. I dreamed about my sister Kate. Lisa said. Finally, she died in the early days of the war, before we knew how to fight the Nexus Empire properly. Zara finally turned to look at her. And in your dream, was she still alive? Yes. Lisa felt tears threatening. In the dream, the war never happened. We were both still children playing in our grandmother's garden on Mars colony. This is what I mean about humans, Zara said, standing and moving to the window. Your minds create alternate realities where things are better than they actually are. Most species accept what is and plan for what might be, but humans also imagine what should be. Is that good or bad? Lisa asked. I am still trying to understand. Zara replied. Come, I want to show you something. They walked through different sections of the ship than Lisa had seen before. These corridors were brighter, with actual windows instead of just display screens. Through them, Lisa could see the vast bulk of the Star Crusher stretching in all directions. The ship was even larger than she had imagined. Entire sections seemed devoted to purposes she could not identify. Strange machinery hummed behind closed doors, and holographic displays showed information in scripts she could not read. Where are we going? Lisa asked. To meet my crew, Zara said. They have been curious about you. The mess hall was enormous, with tables sized for the tall Zephyrian frames. Hundreds of crew members filled the space eating their morning meal. The conversation was quiet and orderly. very different from the loud chaos of human military dining. When Zara entered with Lisa, the entire room fell silent. Every violet eye turned to stare at the small human woman. Lisa felt like a specimen under a microscope. She forced herself to stand straight and meet their gazes. Commander Zara led her to a table where several officers waited. Their uniforms bore the symbols of high rank and their faces showed the confidence of experienced warriors. Lisa recognized the type from her own military service. "This is Captain Lisa Morgan of Earth," Zara announced. "She will be observing our operations and providing insights into human tactical thinking." An older male officer with silver scars across his blue skin leaned forward. "I am Vice Commander Thex," he said in heavily accented English. "Why do humans fight so differently from other species?" The question surprised Lisa with its directness. She had expected formal introductions or small talk, but Zephyrians apparently preferred to address important matters immediately. "I am not sure we do fight differently," Lisa said. "We use the same weapons, follow similar strategies." "No, you misunderstand," another officer interjected. This one was female with intricate tattoos covering her arms. "Your tactics are often identical to ours, but your motivations are completely alien." Lisa looked around the table, seeing genuine curiosity in their faces. These were not interrogators or enemies. They were scholars trying to understand something that puzzled them. "Can you give me an example?" Lisa asked. Vice Commander Thex nodded. "During the siege of Centauri Base, your general, Helen Price ordered her ships to protect Abaton civilians, even though it meant abandoning a strategic position. Why did she do this?" Lisa thought about the incident. The Avatons were bird-like aliens who had contributed little to the war effort. Some humans had questioned whether they were worth protecting, but General Price had been clear about her reasoning. "The Avatons were our allies." Lisa said, "We do not abandon allies, but they were militarily useless." The tattooed officer pointed out their ships were outdated, their weapons were primitive, and their numbers were small. Protecting them served no strategic purpose. "They were people," Lisa said simply. "They had children and families and dreams. They deserved to live." Zephyrian officers exchanged glances that Lisa could not interpret. Finally, Vice Commander Thex spoke again. "You see, this is what we do not understand. Your general sacrificed tactical advantage to protect beings who could not help win the war. Ginai risked human lives for creatures she had never met. Why? Because it was right." Lisa said, then realized how inadequate that answer sounded. "Right according to whom?" the tattooed officer asked. "There is no universal law requiring the protection of weak allies. Your own survival would have been better served by following strategic logic." Lisa struggled to put her feelings into words. How could she explain concepts that seemed obvious to her but made no sense to these logical alien minds? "When we protect others, we protect the idea that all thinking beings have value," Lisa said finally. "If we only saved those who could help us win, then we would become no different from the Nexus Empire." "Ah, Commander," Zara said quietly. "Now you begin to see the problem. My people defeated the Nexus Empire because we were more efficient killers. But efficiency and evil are often very similar." The conversation continued for over an hour. The Zephyrian officers asked detailed questions about human military decisions that seemed irrational to them. Each time Lisa tried to explain the reasoning behind choices that prioritized morality over practicality. Finally, Commander Zara stood, indicating the meeting was over. "Thank you for your patience," she said to her officers. "Captain Morgan and I have other matters to discuss." As they walked back through the ship corridors, Lisa felt mentally exhausted. The questions had forced her to examine assumptions she had never questioned before. "You did well," Zara said. "They are beginning to understand why I chose you." Lisa stopped walking. "What exactly did I do?" "You showed them that humans have found a way to make abstract concepts feel concrete and necessary," Zara explained. "Most species treat ideas like justice or compassion as luxuries they cannot afford during wartime, but humans treat them as tools that are essential for victory." "I never thought of it that way," Lisa admitted. "Neither did I until I began studying your people," Zara said. "Your species discovered something that my people have forgotten that fighting for the right reasons makes you stronger, not weaker. They continued walking in silence, Lisa pondering everything she had learned. The Zephyrians were not interested in her tactical knowledge. They wanted to understand something more fundamental about what made humans willing to die for strangers. That evening, Commander Zara summoned her again. This time they met in what appeared to be Zara's private office. The room was smaller and more personal, with artifacts from various worlds displayed on shelves. I have decided to return to the Zephyrian homeworld, Zara announced. You will address our High Council about human approaches to leadership and motivation. Lisa felt a chill of fear. The idea of speaking to alien leaders about such complex topics seemed impossible. I am not qualified for something like that, Lisa protested. You are the only human who has observed our culture closely enough to make meaningful comparisons, Zara replied. Besides, the decision has already been made. Lisa realized that her real mission was just beginning. She had thought this was about military service, but it was actually about something much more important. She was being asked to help an entire civilization rediscover its soul. The stakes could not be higher. The second day of council sessions began with a surprise. High Chancellor Vorth announced that they had spent the night reviewing historical records from before the great efficiency reforms. The results were disturbing. We found evidence that our ancestors were very different from us, Vorth told the assembled counselors. They created art for its own sake. They celebrated victories with festivals. They even wrote love songs. Our efficiency experts eliminated all of these as wasteful, Lisa saw. Commander Zara nodded grimly. The alien woman had suspected this, but having official confirmation made the loss more real. An elderly counselor named Yenth rose slowly. She was one of the oldest Zephyrians Lisa had met, her silver hair completely white. With age, I remember some of the old ways, Yenth said in a voice that carried clearly through the chamber. When I was young, we had ceremonies to honor fallen warriors, not because it served any practical purpose, but because grief needed expression. Other counselors began sharing their own memories, fragments of a culture that had been systematically dismantled in the name of progress. Lisa realized she was witnessing something rare, the moment when a civilization began to remember what it had forgotten, but remembering was only the first step. The real challenge would be figuring out how to rebuild what had been lost without destroying what had been gained. High Chancellor Vorth turned to Lisa. Your people managed to maintain both efficiency and meaning. During wartime, how did you achieve this balance? Lisa thought carefully about her answer. The question went to the heart of what made human civilization work, despite all its apparent contradictions. We never separated efficiency from meaning, Lisa said finally. Our most effective military units were the ones that fought for causes they believed in. Our best leaders were the ones who inspired, rather than just commanded. Our strongest societies were the ones that protected their values, even when it was difficult. She gestured toward Commander Zara. Your war leader here is proof that efficiency and meaning can coexist. She is successful precisely because she cares about more than just winning. Commander Zara stepped forward. I have been thinking about Captain Morgan's words, she said. My greatest victories came when I was fighting to protect something I valued, not just to defeat enemies. A warrior who fights for nothing beyond victory is just a very efficient killer. The chamber buzzed with quiet conversation. Lisa could see that the ideas were taking root, but she also sensed resistance. Some of the younger counselors looked skeptical. Counselor Drex, a middle-aged male with the bearing of a career administrator, stood to speak. This all sounds very inspiring, he said. But how do we measure success if not through efficiency? How do we make decisions if we must consider emotions and values? It was a fair question. Lisa had to admit, humans struggled with the same balance. Between practicality and principles, you measure different things, Lisa suggested. Instead of only tracking resource allocation, track citizen satisfaction. Instead of only measuring military readiness, measure cultural creativity. Instead of only optimizing for short-term gains, optimize for long-term meaning. But those things are subjective. Counselor Drex objected. They cannot be quantified. Some things should not be quantified. Lisa replied, "If you can reduce love to numbers, then you do not understand love. If you can measure the value of art and resources, then you are missing the point of art." Commander Zara moved to stand beside Lisa. "The human is right," she said. "We have become so focused on measuring everything that we stopped experiencing anything. My own life is a perfect example. I can tell you exactly how many battles I have won, but I cannot tell you the last time I felt truly happy." The admission sent a shock through the chamber. Lisa realized that Zara was taking an enormous risk by revealing such personal information to her fellow leaders. High Chancellor Vorth stood slowly. "I propose an experiment," he announced. "We will select several communities and allow them to reintroduce some of the old ways, art classes, music festivals, ceremonies, that serve no practical purpose. We will observe the results." The debate that followed was intense but not hostile. Lisa watched as an entire civilization wrestled with questions that humans had never fully resolved. How much efficiency should be sacrificed for happiness? How much order should be traded for freedom? How much certainty should be risked for meaning? Finally, the council voted. The experiment would proceed, but carefully and with constant monitoring. The Zephyrians could not abandon their practical nature, but they were willing to try balancing it with something more. As the session ended, Commander Zara approached Lisa. "You have given my people a great gift," she said, "the chance to become whole again." Lisa felt overwhelmed by the responsibility. "Have I done the right thing?" she asked. "What if the experiments fail? What if reintroducing emotion and meaning makes your society weaker?" "Then we will learn from that failure," Zara replied. "But living as we have been is not really living at all. It is just very efficient existence." Over the following weeks, Lisa remained on the Zephyrian homeworld as an advisor. She watched as the first experimental communities began their transformation. The changes were small at first: art classes, for children, music during mealtimes, ceremonies to honor achievements beyond military success. But even small changes had noticeable effects. Lisa saw Zephyrian faces showing emotions she had never witnessed before. Laughter during social gatherings, tears at memorial services, wonder when experiencing beauty. The most remarkable change was in Commander Zara herself. The alien woman began writing poetry again, something she had not done since her youth. The poems were dark and strange, but they carried genuine feeling. Lisa realized that her mission was essentially complete. The Zephyrians had rediscovered the path toward meaning. They would need time to walk it, but they no longer needed human guidance. On her final day, Zara summoned her to the same office where their serious conversations had begun. But this time the room felt different, warmer somehow. Despite the alien architecture, "I have spoken with your Earth government," Zara said. "They have agreed to establish a permanent cultural exchange program, humans and Zephyrians learning from each other." Lisa smiled. It was the first truly happy moment she had experienced since being chosen as a prize. "You will return to Earth tomorrow," Zara continued, "but I hope you will come back someday to see what your people have helped us become." As Lisa prepared to leave, she reflected on everything that had happened. She had been chosen not as a trophy of war, but as a teacher in the most important lesson imaginable: how to find meaning in existence itself. The alien woman had picked a human as her prize, but the real prize had been the exchange of wisdom between two very different species. Both had learned something essential about what it meant to be truly alive in a vast and dangerous universe. "Commander." Zara walked her to the shuttle that would take her home. As they said goodbye, Lisa saw something in those violet eyes that had not been there before: hope for a future that would be worth living, not just surviving. The shuttle lifted off, carrying Lisa back toward Earth, but leaving behind seeds of change that would reshape an entire civilization. She had come as a captive and was leaving as an ambassador between worlds that were no longer strangers to each other. In the end, the greatest victory was not military but spiritual. The rediscovery of what made existence meaningful rather than just efficient. The lesson that some prizes were worth more than conquest that some victories could only be achieved through understanding rather than force as the Zephyrian homeworld faded behind them. Lisa knew she would indeed return someday, to see what grew from the seeds of meaning they had planted together in the efficient but empty soil of a perfect society that had forgotten how to dream. The journey to the Zephyrian homeworld took 12 days. Lisa spent most of that time in intense discussions with Commander Zara and her senior officers. Each conversation revealed more about the crisis facing their civilization. Lisa learned that Zephyrian society was built on principles of perfect efficiency. Every citizen had a role determined by their abilities. Every decision was based on careful analysis of costs and benefits. The system had made them incredibly successful, but it had also made them cold. We used to have poets, Zara explained during one of their evening talks. They would create works about the beauty of battle, the honor of sacrifice, the glory of dying for one's people, but efficiency experts decided poetry served no practical purpose. What happened to the poets? Lisa asked. They were retrained as data analysts, Zara said quietly. Much more useful for military planning. Lisa began to understand the scope of what had been lost. The Zephyrians had optimized away everything that made life worth living. In their pursuit of perfect efficiency, they had forgotten why they wanted to survive at all. During the final days of their journey, Lisa observed the crew more carefully. She noticed that conversations were brief and focused on practical matters. No one joked or told stories or shared personal experiences. The ship ran perfectly, but it felt like a machine operated by other machines. Commander Zara seemed different from the others, though. There was something in her eyes that suggested she remembered what had been lost. Perhaps that was why she had been chosen to lead this mission, to rediscover their humanity, or whatever the Zephyrian equivalent might be. On the morning they reached Zephyrian space, Lisa got her first look at their homeworld through the observation deck. The planet was beautiful with blue oceans and silver cities that gleamed like jewels. But something about it seemed artificial, too perfect to be natural. The cities are planned down to the smallest detail, Zara said, standing beside her. Every building serves a specific function. Every street is designed for maximum traffic flow. It is very efficient, but not very alive. Lisa observed. No, Zara agreed. Not very alive. The landing process was as smooth and organized as everything else in Zephyrian society. Their shuttle touched down at a spaceport that looked more like a piece of art than a functional facility. Everything was clean and geometric with no wasted space or unnecessary decoration. A delegation of high-ranking officials waited for them. Lisa recognized the type from her own military experience. These were people who had spent their lives giving orders and having those orders obeyed, without question. High Chancellor. Forth was older than Commander Zara, with silver hair that had begun to fade to white. His violet eyes held the weight of leading an entire civilization, but they also held something else that Lisa recognized as doubt. So this is the human, Vorth said, studying Lisa with obvious curiosity. You are smaller than I expected. Most humans are, Lisa replied. Commander Zara chose me to discuss military philosophy with your council. Yes, we are most interested in these discussions, Vorth said. But first you must understand our situation. He led them through the capital city in a transport that moved silently above the streets. Lisa watched through the windows as perfectly ordered neighborhoods passed by. Every building was the right height. Every garden was precisely maintained. Every citizen moved with obvious purpose. It looks like paradise, Lisa said. That is the problem, Vorth replied. We have achieved everything our ancestors dreamed of. Perfect health, perfect efficiency, perfect order, yet our young people report feeling empty. Our birth rates are declining. Our artists produce nothing but technical manuals. We are dying as a culture, even as we succeed as a society. Lisa began to see why they needed human insight. The Zephyrians had created a perfect world, but perfection left no room for the struggles and conflicts that gave meaning to existence. The High Council chamber was magnificent, with soaring ceilings and walls covered in historical murals, showing great victories from Zephyrian history. Hundreds of officials filled tiered seating around a central speaking area. Commander Zara led Lisa to the center of the chamber where they stood before the assembled leaders of an entire civilization. Lisa felt the weight of countless eyes, studying her every movement. High Chancellor Vorth called for attention, and the chamber fell completely silent. The discipline was impressive, but also unsettling. Lisa was used to human assemblies where people whispered and shifted in their seats. Honored, Counselor Vorth began. We have asked this human to address us because we face a crisis that our own wisdom cannot solve. Our military victories are complete, our territory is secure, our technology is supreme. Yet we find ourselves asking why any of this matters. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Lisa realized that this was not a secret problem, but something every Zephyrian leader understood and worried about. Commander Zara has studied human military practices during the recent war. Vorth continued. She believes they have discovered principles we have forgotten. I present Captain Lisa Morgan of Earth. Lisa stepped forward, her heart pounding. She had given speeches before, but never to an audience of alien leaders whose entire civilization hung in the balance. Honored counselors, she began using the formal address Zara had taught her. I am here because Commander Zara believes humans fight differently than other species. But I think the real difference is not how we fight, but why we choose to fight. She paused, letting her words sink in. Around the chamber, she saw violet eyes focused intently on her. During the war with the Nexus Empire, humans made many choices that seemed inefficient. Lisa continued. We protected weak allies, we sacrificed strategic advantages, we risked everything to save people. We had never met. Your military analysts probably considered us foolish. Yes, an elderly counselor called out. We did consider you foolish. Why did you make such choices? Because we believe some things are more important than winning, Lisa said. We fight not just to survive, but to create a universe where survival is worth the effort. The chamber erupted in discussion. Counselors turned to each other, speaking in rapid Zephyrian. Lisa could not understand the words, but she recognized the tone of intense debate. High Chancellor Vorth called for quiet. Then he looked directly at Lisa. Explain this concept that some things are more important than winning. Lisa took a deep breath. How could she make beings who thought in pure logic understand something that was fundamentally emotional? When humans protect the weak, we are not just saving lives, Lisa said. We are proving to ourselves that we are the kind of people who deserve to survive. When we sacrifice for strangers, we strengthen the bonds that hold our societies together. When we fight for justice, we create meaning that lasts longer than any individual victory. But these are inefficient uses of resources. Another counselor objected. You could achieve better military outcomes by focusing on practical goals. Yes, Lisa agreed. But what would be the point of achieving those outcomes if we became monsters in the process? The Nexus Empire was very efficient, too. They conquered worlds and enslaved populations and eliminated anything they considered wasteful. But no one mourned when they fell because they had made themselves into something that deserved to die. The chamber fell silent. Lisa could see that her words had hit home. The Zephyrians prided themselves on their efficiency, but they were beginning to see the dark side of that philosophy. Commander Zara stepped forward. My people have become so focused on how to win that we forgot why winning matters, she said. We need to rediscover what makes victory worth achieving. High Chancellor Vorth stood slowly. You are suggesting that we must become less efficient. No, Lisa said. You need to become efficient at different things. Instead of optimizing for military victory, optimize for creating a civilization worth defending. Instead of measuring success by territory conquered, measure it by the happiness of your people. The discussion that followed lasted for hours. Counselors asked detailed questions about human society, human values, human approaches to leadership. Lisa did her best to answer, but she knew she was describing something that could not simply be copied. Finally, as the day grew late, High Chancellor Vorth called for a recess. We will consider everything you have said, he told Lisa. Tomorrow we will discuss how to implement these ideas. As they left the chamber, Commander Zara looked thoughtful. "You have given them much to think about," she said. Lisa nodded, but she wondered if thinking would be enough. The Zephyrians faced a challenge that went deeper than policy changes. They needed to rediscover their souls.